Bob Denver wasn't even my first choice. Jerry Van Dyke was my first choice. In fact, I brought him out here from Texas for that part.
Gilligan's Island, the iconic 1960s situation comedy that captured the American viewing public and secured a lasting place in television history. Yet, beneath its wholesome, funny exterior are deeply chaotic and utterly astonishing production secrets that were successfully covered up for decades. A performer was unintentionally swept out to sea during a shoot, experiencing genuine terror. Another loathed their designated part to the extent that they completely severed all future contact with the entire ensemble. These are just two of the 20 shocking secrets Hollywood tried to hide about Gilligan's Island. Even the most committed fans have probably never heard these details. Prepare to have your perceptions of the legendary sitcom altered in this video.
Why not? Here.
Well, I don't have much of an ear for music.
You don't need an ear, just a knee.
Hey!
The first episode was filmed in Hawaii to lure the actors. Space was an unexpected destination, but the very start of this beloved adventure began with a calculated invitation to Hawaii. The initial pilot episode of Gilligan's Island was shot on location in Hawaii in 1963. When Sherwood Schwartz approached Natalie Schaefer, Mrs. Howell, she was initially hesitant until she learned that the pilot would be filmed in Oahu. She immediately agreed, viewing it as a paid, luxurious vacation and fully convinced that the silly show would never actually make it to air. She was not the only one who thought this way. Several actors accepted their roles, believing it was a short-term test project that would wrap up after a few weeks. However, when CBS officially picked up the series, the entire cast was required to return to Los Angeles, where the permanent set and artificial lagoon were built on the studio lot. Many were disappointed. They had hoped for sun-drenched beach days in Hawaii, but instead found themselves shivering in cold fake water on a soundstage. Yet, if not for that initial enticing offer of a tropical trip, Gilligan's Island might never have secured the perfect cast that made it a cultural institution. 2. A NASA astronaut was inspired by the show. That never-revealed name was an interesting secret, but Gilligan's Island's influence reached far beyond the realm of entertainment. It even reached space. Scott Kelly, a renowned NASA astronaut, spent an uninterrupted 340 days aboard the International Space Station, ISS, completing one of the longest space missions in American history. When asked about the early sources of inspiration for his lifelong dream of exploration, he didn't mention famous scientists or pioneers. Instead, he cited Gilligan's Island. For Kelly, watching the show as a child, seeing people stranded in a strange environment, constantly striving to escape a place where they didn't belong, was what sparked his imagination and his dream of leaving Earth. Even though there were no spaceships in the show, the concept of the small, isolated island became his first symbol of exploration, a place where anything could happen and humans were always forced to adapt to the unknown.
They've got a good raft, and the skipper's a fine sailor, and, well, Gilligan is... Oh, I hope they'll get through.
3. Gilligan's real name was Willie Gilligan. The cast may have reunited for one television appearance, but one key fact about the main character was deliberately hidden throughout the entire run of the series. Throughout the countless episodes, the name Gilligan was constantly used, but that was only his last name. The character's full, given name, according to creator Sherwood Schwartz, was Willie Gilligan. This first name was never spoken on screen. No cast member ever called him Willie, and the script never included it. Schwartz only confirmed this detail in an interview years after the show ended, surprising many dedicated fans. The fact that Gilligan was essentially nameless on the show made the character feel even more like the perpetual everyman. He was the lovable buffoon, the source of every problem, yet endlessly kind and relatable. Perhaps the audience never needed to know his first name to embrace him. The name Gilligan was more than sufficient to become a television legend. 4. The entire cast reunited on the sitcom Roseanne. It's a little-known fact that, despite their separation for many years, the castaways had a rare opportunity to appear together again, but in a completely different context. In 1995, the popular sitcom Roseanne aired a special episode titled Sherwood Schwartz, a tribute to the man who created both Gilligan's Island and the Brady Bunch. The biggest surprise for the audience was the return of almost the entire original cast of Gilligan's Island, though they played new characters. Bob Denver appeared as a character named Jackie, Russell Johnson, Professor, played Becky's husband, Dawn Wells was cast as Darlene, and most remarkably, Tina Louise agreed to appear with her former co-stars for the first time in decades. In the episode, each actor took on a role within the Roseanne universe, creating bizarre yet nostalgic scenes. For fans, it was a unique moment to see the castaways share the screen again since the series concluded. There was no SS Minnow or palm trees, just another television family welcoming them with laughter and appreciation.
Be careful of that vine. That's a trap. I know. They threw me out.
5. Dusty's Trail, the failed cowboy copy. When a television formula proves to be a massive success, the natural instinct is to try and repeat it, but maybe with a different setting. Following the unprecedented triumph of Gilligan's Island, creator Sherwood Schwartz sought to reproduce that success once more. This time, he placed the familiar character archetypes into a completely different environment, the Old West. The new project, titled Dusty's Trail, debuted in 1973. It again starred Bob Denver as the lead accident-prone character. But instead of being lost at sea, the group became separated from a wagon train heading west. The cast still featured the stock characters: a rich man, a simple country girl, a glamorous beauty, a smart intellectual, but this time, they were lost on the prairie instead of the ocean. It was essentially a Western-themed version of Gilligan's Island. The audience, however, was not impressed. Dusty's Trail was criticized for being derivative, dull, and lacking originality. Most reviews noted that it felt like a poor imitation of the original. The series was swiftly canceled after just one season, quickly fading into obscurity. 6. The lagoon was just a set pool. The water was dirty and cold, and if you've ever imagined yourself relaxing in the beautiful tropical waters of Gilligan's Island, you need to adjust your expectations. On screen, Gilligan's Island appeared to be a lush, tropical paradise. Bright blue skies, soft white sand, inviting water, and actors casually wading in the waves. The truth is, the ocean was nothing more than an artificial pool constructed right in the middle of the CBS studio complex in Studio City, California. And that pool was essentially a cold, rarely cleaned swimming hole. Because they couldn't use chlorine to sanitize the water, due to concerns about damaging the actors' costumes and skin, the water was often foul, cloudy, smelly, and far from the tropical blue color imagined by the audience. On cool shooting days, the water temperature could be so low that it turned the actors' lips blue and made their teeth chatter uncontrollably. Yet on film, they had to splash, swim, and smile brightly, pretending to be on an idyllic vacation. The camera crew had to use every trick, careful angles, bright lighting, and industrial fans for fake waves, to maintain the illusion. While the audience fantasized about being marooned there, the people involved simply longed to finish the scene quickly so they could get out and get warm.
Well, how do I look?
Ginger, believe me, you look like the Venus de Milo with arms.
7. Bob Denver was a descendant of the person who named the city of Denver. Not everything fascinating about Bob Denver happened on a remote island. One piece of trivia links him directly to the map of the United States. Before becoming the lovable, stumbling Gilligan on television, Bob Denver carried a surprising family lineage. His surname, Denver, was not chosen for the screen. It was a real historical connection. His great-grandfather, James William Denver, served as the governor of the Kansas Territory in the mid-19th century, an influential political figure. In 1858, when settlers founded a new community in Colorado, they decided to name it Denver as a gesture to gain favor with the federal government, hoping to establish a post route. That name was approved and remains the official name of Colorado's capital to this day. Many years later, the descendant of this politician achieved fame in an entirely different arena. Not through governance or speeches, but by wearing a distinctive sailor's cap and running around on a fabricated island. From politics to comedy, the name Denver experienced a strange shift in American history, culminating in the image of a simple guy who brought laughter to generations of viewers. 8. Bob Denver fought to get his co-stars' names into the opening song. Among the talented ensemble, not everyone was initially given equal credit, especially in the famous opening theme song of Gilligan's Island. During the entire first season, the theme song introduced each character by name until it reached the final two, the Professor and Mary Ann. Instead of being listed, they were grouped together in the vague, dismissive line, "and the rest." No name, no identity, no personality. Bob Denver, who played the title character, refused to accept this slight. Despite his starring status, he never considered himself more important than his colleagues. When negotiating for the second season, Denver issued an ultimatum to CBS. If they did not include the names of Russell Johnson, Professor, and Dawn Wells, Mary Ann, in the opening theme lyrics, he would demand his own name be removed from the entire credit sequence. It was a simple, non-negotiable demand. CBS initially resisted, citing the expense of re-recording the song, but the pressure from their star forced them to comply. Starting with the second season, the Professor and Mary Ann were officially named in the lyrics, a small but significant change that acknowledged the equal importance of the entire cast to the show's success.
And it never misses.
We'll see you later, Professor. I think my little buddy here has developed a kind of a sore throat.
9. Tina Louise, Ginger. Hated her role and refused all related activities. Among the 7 passengers who found themselves marooned on a small island in Gilligan's Island, Ginger Grant, the dazzling movie star, was consistently one of the most prominent figures. Her polished, attractive appearance and sophisticated manner, a stark contrast to the untamed surroundings, made her instantly memorable from the debut episodes. Viewers quickly became fond of Ginger. The paradox, however, is that the actress who played her, Tina Louise, never grew to love the role and, in fact, came to deeply resent it. Tina had joined Gilligan's Island believing she would be playing a character with substantial dramatic substance, not a superficial comedic trope destined for predictable, running gags. The moment the show aired, Ginger was permanently typecast as little more than a pretty distraction, which left Tina feeling profoundly demeaned and trapped in a characterization she never wanted. This deep disappointment wasn't confined to her career, it permeated her relationships with co-stars, particularly with Dawn Wells, Mary Ann. While no public feud ever broke out, the atmosphere on set was often stressfully tense. Tina maintained strict boundaries, minimized interactions, and frequently declined to participate in cast photos or marketing campaigns. Following the show's conclusion, the rest of the cast embraced their roles, participating in animated series, TV movies, and interviews. Tina Louise, however, virtually vanished from anything associated with Gilligan's Island. She rejected every offer for a return, refused to voice her character in the cartoon Gilligan's Planet, and essentially cut off all communication with the other actors. For the audience, Ginger was a beloved figure. For Tina, the part was an unwanted shadow she desperately sought to leave behind. 10. The cast really drifted out to sea while filming a promo scene. The quiet tension among the cast, however, pales in comparison to the absolutely terrifying, genuine incident that nearly resulted in the drowning of the entire crew in the middle of the ocean. During a publicity photo shoot off the California coast, CBS decided to charter a small boat to capture some authentic, open-water visuals. The plan seemed innocuous, a quick shoot with gentle waves and a light breeze. But before the cameras even had a chance to focus, an impenetrable wall of fog suddenly materialized, enveloping the entire vessel. Visibility plummeted. The radio went silent. The entire cast, still dressed as their characters, Gilligan in his signature red shirt, Ginger in a delicate silk gown, Mary Ann without shoes, began to drift helplessly into open, uncharted waters. This was no performance, it was real. There were no fake props, no post-production tricks, and nobody available to shout, "Cut." In that terrifying moment, if not for the fast response of the US Coast Guard, Gilligan's Island might have become a genuine human tragedy. When the rescue boat finally reached them, they reported seeing skipper Alan Hale Jr. standing at the bow, genuinely issuing commands like a true captain in the unexpected crisis. A few seconds of footage from this near disaster were later edited into the opening credits. However, from that day on, CBS strictly prohibited any further ocean filming. Future waves were created using powerful industrial fans and a tank of artificial water. No one on the production team was eager to experience that terrifying drift for a second time.
Your own sweet, charming, simple way, what it is that you want most.
I would like a world without strife, universal harmony, international goodwill.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
11. Jerry Van Dyke turned down the role of Gilligan for a failed sitcom. After the horrifying real-life experience at sea, it's hard to believe that the show's biggest potential catastrophe wasn't in the ocean, but in a casting office. Before Bob Denver adopted the sailor outfit and achieved immortal status on U.S. television, the lead role of Gilligan was initially offered directly to Jerry Van Dyke, the younger sibling of legendary performer Dick Van Dyke. Yet, upon reading the script, Jerry immediately refused the offer. He famously labeled it one of the worst concepts I'd ever encountered, describing it as a vacuous sitcom about shipwrecked people with no depth, no potential. In Jerry's estimation, Gilligan's Island was low-grade humor, and he felt he was destined for higher quality work. This ambition led him to pursue a project he was convinced would be a major success. The sitcom My Mother the Car, in which the protagonist communicates with his deceased mother's spirit, housed inside an antique automobile. Jerry risked his entire career on this show and suffered a complete loss. My Mother the Car was a spectacular failure, torn apart by critics, ignored by audiences, and is still remembered today as one of the worst television comedies ever made. Meanwhile, Bob Denver, who took the Gilligan role after Jerry's rejection, not only earned a place in TV history, but remained forever associated with the clumsy, beloved character. This single casting decision became one of the greatest professional regrets of Jerry Van Dyke's life. 12. The show's name was almost Gilligan's Travels. The surprises kept coming, as even the fundamental title of the program was almost incorrect. Few realized that Gilligan's Island was very nearly titled Gilligan's Travels. Creator Sherwood Schwartz was initially drawn to the alliteration and the connotation of high adventure, reminiscent of Gulliver's Travels, a classic narrative about strange journeys. He intended the name to be a witty pun, suggesting an ongoing, fantastical quest. The main issue, however, was accurate. Gilligan's Island is not about travel. There is no ongoing journey, no new port of call. It is a tale of individuals who are utterly immobilized, caught in a loop of familiar situations while desperately attempting to escape without success. The title Gilligan's Travels inadvertently conveyed a completely misleading feeling. It sounded too academic, too literary, and could have caused viewers to mistake it for a science fiction series or a grown-up fairy tale. In the end, Sherwood Schwartz abandoned the poetic flourish and chose the simple, literal truth: Gilligan's Island. It was concise, memorable, and highly descriptive. 13. The show was canceled at the last minute to make way for Gunsmoke. Even with everything settled and running smoothly, Gilligan's Island couldn't escape a profound act of sabotage carried out by the network itself. After 3 successful seasons and boasting a massive, dedicated fan base, CBS had given its formal approval for the production of a 4th season. The actors were making life changes in Los Angeles. Many purchased homes near the studio, preparing to commit to the project long-term. Spirits were high, scripts were being outlined, and everyone anticipated continuing their adventures with the famous castaways. However, during a swift, closed-door executive meeting, the entire plan was scrapped. The cancellation was not due to poor viewership, a scandal, or any professional deficiency. The cause was the personal preference of the CBS network president's wife. She was a devoted fan of Gunsmoke, a long-running Western that was itself facing cancellation. As a result, instead of moving forward with Gilligan's Island, CBS management decided to rescue Gunsmoke by placing it in the popular time slot that had been reserved for Gilligan's Island. There was no official statement, no formal goodbye, and no final resolution episode was ever filmed. The 4th season was canceled during the final week, and the entire cast only learned they had lost their jobs by reading the news in the paper.
That? No. Menace her, Bo. You're going to be burned at the stake, and smoke will get in your eyes and everything.
14. The pilot episode was lost for nearly 30 years, but perhaps the item that spent the longest time in obscurity in the history of Gilligan's Island was not the SS Minnow, but the very first episode. The original pilot episode was recorded in 1963, a full year before the show's official premiere. However, after viewing the initial cut, CBS executives felt a strong sense of hesitation regarding the show's direction. It wasn't because the quality was lacking, but because it felt too unfamiliar. The pacing was erratic, the structure was too loose, and crucially, the cast was incomplete. The role that became Ginger was initially a reserved secretary, and the intelligent professor was played by a different actor whose personality was deemed completely unsuitable. CBS ultimately archived the entire episode. It was neither canceled nor aired. It sat forgotten in the network's private vaults for nearly 3 decades, as though it never existed. It wasn't until 1992, during a public resurgence of interest in classic shows, that the original pilot episode finally received its first broadcast, stunning millions of viewers as they witnessed Gilligan's Island in its raw, unrefined version. 15. Alan Hale Jr., Skipper, broke his arm but continued filming. Not every instance of discomfort on Gilligan's Island was acted. There was genuine suffering masked by laughter, and it went completely unnoticed until after the fact. During a simple scene that required him to climb a coconut tree, a routine comedic moment for the series, Alan Hale Jr., who played Skipper, lost his grip and fell hard from a considerable height. The impact resulted in a broken arm. For almost any other actor, this would have necessitated a filming pause, a period of rest, or a schedule adjustment. But Alan chose not to. He didn't notify the director, never saw the on-set doctor, and didn't mention the injury to his colleagues. He silently endured the pain, bandaged his arm privately, and immediately resumed work. From that day forward, he began wearing long-sleeved shirts, strategically concealing his injured arm from the cameras, and meticulously adapting his movements so that viewers would suspect nothing. The chase scenes, the comical stumbles, and the energetic shouting all continued as before. No one realized that behind every action was actual physical pain, expertly hidden by his professionalism and commitment. When the injury was finally disclosed, the crew was speechless. Alan Hale Jr. was far more than just Skipper. He was the unwavering support of the entire team, a true leader both in front of and behind the cameras. 16. Natalie Schaefer, Mrs. Howell, hid her real age, 13 years older than her husband. Other secrets were not derived from the script or on-set mishaps, but from the island's wealthiest resident herself, Mrs. Howell. Natalie Schaefer, who portrayed the high society Mrs. Howell, consistently presented herself with an air of elegant sophistication and youthfulness that cleverly disguised her true age. When Gilligan's Island first aired, the audience guessed she was in her early 40s, perhaps slightly younger than her co-star, Jim Backus, who played her husband. But the truth, kept secret until her passing, shocked everyone. Natalie Schaefer was born in 1900. This meant that when she began her role as Mrs. Howell, she was over 60 and a full 13 years senior to the actor playing her spouse. This was not merely an impressive illusion of age, it was evidence of the incredibly strict image control maintained by a veteran Hollywood actress. Natalie guarded her age so intensely that even her close colleagues were afraid to inquire. She maintained the same high society dress, mannerisms, and lifestyle, not just for the camera, but in her private life as well. Once, when her home phone line was having issues and the operator was delaying her repair request, she simply told the operator, "I am Mrs. Howell from Gilligan's Island." Within half an hour, a technician arrived at her home, ready to receive autographs. 17. The animals on the show were real. No special effects were used. The secrets just keep coming. This next fact will certainly surprise you. The entire setting for Gilligan's Island was a soundstage built in Los Angeles, but to imbue the set with a genuine feeling of jungle wildness, the producers decided to use live animals rather than models or expensive effects. Real monkeys, various birds, live parrots, and even lizards appeared naturally in countless scenes. While the intention was good, the practical reality was pure mayhem. The monkeys frequently ran wild, snatching props and climbing onto the actors' shoulders during takes. At one point, a parrot landed directly on Bob Denver's head and began squawking non-stop into the microphone, completely ruining the audio track for the scene. Birds often flew right into the camera frame or collided with the lighting equipment. Instead of having full control, the production team was forced to adapt to a set where unpredictability was the norm. But it was precisely that on-set pandemonium that brought an authenticity that special effects could never capture. The feeling that this island was real, not fake or overly polished, but vibrant, untamed, and constantly surprising.
Like to run your fingers through that.
Oh, fingers! I could go in up to my elbows.
Please, back.
18. Gilligan's Planet, the animated version in outer space. When the team ran out of ideas for new ways for the castaways to fail to escape the island, the producers chose to amplify the show's inherent absurdity, literally. In the early 1980s, the series was resurrected as an animated show titled Gilligan's Planet. The new premise, after years of fruitless escape attempts, the castaways construct a makeshift rocket and are accidentally marooned on a distant world where, naturally, they remain stranded. Coconuts were replaced with alien fruit, the ocean with a starscape, but the familiar chaotic dynamic played out among extraterrestrial creatures. Surprisingly, most of the original cast returned to voice their animated counterparts, with the consistent exception of Tina Louise, who still refused any involvement with the Gilligan franchise. Ginger was voiced by another actress, but everything else retained the original spirit, simply transposed into a sci-fi setting. Gilligan's Planet was also one of the last cartoons to still use a laugh track for adult viewers, the canned laughter that had been a hallmark of American TV for years. Though it ran for a mere 13 episodes, the series served as an odd, goofy footnote to an adventure that was fundamentally absurd from the very beginning. 19. The boat's name, SS Minnow, was a political satirical joke. Even the name of the boat, which seemed the most innocent detail of the entire show, concealed a direct political insult aimed at the American media establishment of the era. The SS Minnow, the schooner that delivered the 7 main characters to their fate, was actually a clever political dig engineered by creator Sherwood Schwartz. The name was a clear reference to Newton Minnow, the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, in the early 1960s, who had famously and publicly criticized American television, calling it a vast wasteland. Schwartz chose not to reply directly to the criticism. Instead, he subtly named the ill-fated boat the Minnow, a small, insignificant, and easily lost fish, as a quiet way to mock the commissioner's harsh assessment. It wasn't named the Titanic or the Victory, just a tiny minnow destined to be shipwrecked forever. 20. Dawn Wells, Mary Ann, was the only one to get residuals. Not everyone who appeared in Gilligan's Island received the financial benefits they deserved once the show achieved its enduring success, but one actor had the foresight to protect herself. Dawn Wells, who played the sweet, humble farm girl Mary Ann, was the only actor in the cast to receive long-term residual payments from the series. This wasn't pure chance, it was due to a technical detail in her contract that the others had overlooked. At the time she signed with CBS, Dawn was married to Larry Rosen, an intelligent and experienced agent in the entertainment industry. He astutely noticed a clause that limited residual payments to only a few initial rebroadcasts and insisted on a small yet crucial contract amendment. The producers, not anticipating that a silly sitcom like Gilligan's Island would become a decades-long phenomenon, easily agreed. When the show was rerun perpetually, most of the cast received nothing, but Dawn Wells was the exception. Thanks to a single line added to her contract at the right time, she was the only one on the team who continued to be paid every time a viewer tuned in to watch Gilligan's antics or Skipper's frustrations. Gilligan's Island may look like a simple, cheerful sitcom, but beneath the surface lies a trove of bizarre, surprising, and often unbelievable truths. From actual on-set accidents to behind-the-scenes conflicts and the many small, hidden details in the writing, all of these facts contributed to a piece of television history that is truly unique. The 20 secrets you've just uncovered not only expose little-known stories, but also reveal the deep complexities that allowed this show to live on in the hearts of viewers for generations. If you were shocked, entertained, or have fond memories of Gilligan's Island, don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to hit like and subscribe if you want more fascinating behind-the-scenes content.